own, and not those of Vic Canellis Media Group, its parent, affiliates, or stations. VCMG Live is not responsible for any content, information, or opinions expressed. User bears full responsibility for their reliance on such content, information, or opinions.
Welcome to Making Money with Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. With over 20 years of real estate experience and selling over 150 homes a year, Laura Sanders is the #1 RE/MAX agent in the state of Florida for 2021. Join us each week as we discuss how to make money through buying and flipping homes, to renting versus selling, and everything in between. To join the conversation, call in live. 888-994-4995, Studio A.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Making Money with Laura Sanders, and I am your host, Laura Sanders. Every week we talk about something that will help you make a little money, save a little money, or just help you navigate this crazy world that we live in. Today we're going to talk about polybutylene pipes. This to me is something that is scary as hell for a buyer when buying a house. So how do you know whether or not you're going to get insurance? And never mind about those realtors that tell you, oh, you can get insurance. I'm sure you can, but can you afford it? So welcome Brandon with Goosehead Insurance. Today we're going to talk about polybutylene pipes, maybe some other things too, but let's talk about insurance and talk about how do we navigate polybutylene.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love being here. It's always a good time.
Yeah, I make you laugh.
You make me laugh every time. One thing I will say, because we talk about tips that we want to provide to people, and I think as a homeowner, if you own it, especially a single family home, there's a little tool you can get at the store. It's like a T shape, and it's a tool that turns off the water at the city.
Okay.
It doesn't, you have your own water shut off valve on your house, but this tool turns it off at the city box. I suggest every single homeowner get one of those. They're $15-20. And if you ever go and you've had a leak in your house, which I had a leak at my main water shut off, so I couldn't turn the main water shut off because it didn't matter.
Right.
I had to turn it off at the city. I didn't have the tool. And sometimes on older homes, people go to turn them off. It breaks. And so then they can't get water flowing into their house off. You got to shut it off at the city box. This tool is really, really good to have.
What's it called?
It's called,
I think, city tool.
I think it's called like, if I looked it up.
Is it an L?
It's called a water main shut off tool. I think if you look at, I'm serious. And it's like a 3-foot iron pole with a T at the top that you can use to twist this thing in the city box. So I always suggest that. But moving on to polybutylene, I'll probably say poly, just for short.
Blame the girl always.
But these pipes, they were used up until about the mid 90s, as you know, and what happens is at the joints or any turns or where it's coming out of the wall, there's clamps and things get loose and they pop and they break and water just goes everywhere. And so insurance companies do not want to insure these at all.
But it's really at the fittings, not really in the walls, but yet they want you to replace it throughout the entire wall too.
Yeah, at the fittings. So sometimes what you'll have a change in direction. So you have a fitting there.
Right. But they want you to take it out of the walls too.
Correct. Yeah.
When the fittings aren't really in the wall, they're really right at the...
Well, if you have change in direction at a wall, you can't crimp a pipe, you know. Oh. And so they'll have a little bracket that turns it.
And you have to take the whole pipe out.
And you got to take the whole pipe out. Yeah. And so I don't have an insurance company that will write these. I have insurance companies that will allow for them, but they exclude water damage on the policy.
But most insurance policies are excluding for water damage these days.
They're limiting. So
I've seen some without it at all.
Yeah.
And the most that I've seen is 10,000. So would you allow, I mean, first of all, let's be honest with each other. 10,000 in water coverage isn't going to do anything. Like honestly, it's like having nothing, because 10,000 is like the minute it breaks, it's like forget about it, right?
Yeah, correct. And understanding that you're probably going to spend more money on the back end, because that insurance company is going to drop you because you made a claim, and then you're going to have to go with another company that costs more. You're better off just not making the claim.
Right. So why even it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Why
So-
pay for the coverage?
Correct. Now, you can pay for extra coverage, full water coverage with certain companies.
Okay.
But
What does
it's
that
u-
look like when you say full water coverage? What does that look like?
So, meaning they'll cover the entire loss, whatever it costs. And usually I'm seeing anywhere between $1,500, $2,500, $3,000 more on a policy to have full water damage protection.
15, 2,500, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. That's
It
a
can-
lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's
Unless
a-
you're talking about, well, then, even like insuring like a multi-million-dollar home, that's a whole nother thing, because you really don't even have enough coverage for after the first million, it's like,
Yeah, once you get past about like 750 a million in coverage A, which is the total payout, it just becomes kind of a different game in insurance.
right. So, yeah, it's mind-blowing, right? Isn't it? I mean, I'm thinking about it, and I'm just like, but like a normal policy with just no water coverage, what are we looking at?
So of course it depends on the characteristics of the property and the
Right.
carrier, but let's just take your average 2,000 square foot home.
Okay.
Single family home. We're not talking about condos, we're not talking about multi-million, we're not talking about
Right.
townhouses. In South Florida, Tri-County, Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach.
Okay.
Typically, I'm seeing an average of, I would say, $6,000.
Okay.
Now, my average policy is around 3,500, including condos and townhouses, multi-million, all of that.
Okay.
But typically, I'm seeing around $6,000.
Okay. Now, I heard you say that you can't get coverage for polybutylene pipes. Why are you lying to us? You just did it for a client.
No, what I was saying is...
Yeah, but you got to make sure, because I heard you say, I can't get insurance for polybutylene pipes. You said you can't cover poly.
Well, actually, if we roll back the tape here,
Okay.
what I said was that you can get an insurance policy for the property,
Okay.
but they're not going to include water damage,
Okay, you're
which
right.
is
You
when
did
we
say
went
that,
into
but
the
I
water
want to
damage.
make sure we're hearing,
Yeah,
like,
so you can get insurance for a home with polybutylene pipes, but you're not going to have any water damage coverage. So you're going to get other perils covered, or other causes of loss, hurricane, fire, those type of things.
okay. So what I want to do is I want to go to commercial break, but when we come back, I want to talk about what policies and what does it look like, if I was to have that same house and remove the poly, how would that policy look like? So let's go to commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to keep talking about poly, because she's definitely a problem.
Polly is not a nice girl.
No, she's not. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Whether you're buying, selling, refinancing, or building your dream home, you have a lot riding on your loan specialist. Max Fish, a top 1% mortgage loan officer in the nation, will give you a same-day qualifying quote. Max Fish is committed to providing his customers with mortgage services that exceed their expectations. Ensuring that you make the right choice for you and your family is his ultimate goal. Contact Max Fish today at 954-729-6933 or max.fisch@nwmcorp.net.
At JK Closing Attorneys, we do all of the same things that a title company does, but with the benefits of being a law office. We can help with residential real estate, short sales, commercial real estate, refinances, 1031 exchanges, and FRIPTA withholding.
Contact JK Closing Attorneys today at 954-332-3111. Again, that is 954-332-3111.
You have been watching Making Money with Laura. For more information, contact Laura Sanders at 954-650-0827 or visit her website at theloracell.com. And now back to the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Making Money with Laura Sanders, and I am your host, Laura Sanders. Today we're talking about polybutylene pipes, good old Polly. She's really not good. And we're here with Brandon from our wonderful insurance company. So tell me, Brandon, what kind of policy are we going to get with Poly? Like, is it really just not getting water coverage, but we'll get all the same coverages that we would normally get? And if we were to switch out those pipes, what would that look like?
So typically, you're going to get the same policy that you would get if you didn't have polybutylene pipes. And if you got rid of them, excluding water damage, of course, like we spoke about. But if you got rid of them, then you're just going to open yourself up to other carriers that are willing to take your policy. So I write with dozens of carriers, or companies, I should say. Right now I have 3.
That will do the Poly?
That will do the poly.
Okay.
And you have to fit inside their box.
Yeah, talk about their boxes.
So like 2 of them, in the Tri-County area, you have to have full envelope protection for them to take on a policy, meaning all your doors, all your windows, any skylights, any glass blocks like we see in some properties, all of that has to be, your garage door, all of that has to be hurricane impact protected. If not, they're not going to take the policy. And so you got to fit into that box. There's other little things, like one of them has this weird thing where there's flexible plumbing under a sink.
Yeah.
Sometimes
corrugated.
Yeah, sometimes you use the corrugated plumbing, makes it a little bit easier. Truthfully, I've done it myself in one of my own properties.
And they sell it at Home Depot.
It's so easy.
Yeah.
But if it has that, they won't take it.
Interesting.
And so you open yourself up to even more limited options. But
that's an easy fix.
That's an easy
fix. Can be
fix.
fixed right there.
Now, if there's no impact protection, that's not necessarily
an
an easy
easy
fix. So
fix.
then we're going to my other 2. Well, one of those other 2 require at least $700,000 in coverage A. Most properties are not going to fit into that.
So it needs to be a more expensive
It needs
property?
to be a more expensive property. Now, then we go to my other carrier, and they're typically priced higher because they're what we call a non-admitted carrier.
Oh, so if you were to then get the Poly fix within, let's say, a month, you would be stuck with them for 6 months maybe? It would be like one of those policies that it's non-refundable, like the first 3 or 6 months?
Well, that would be a builder's risk. But these policies you would get a prorated return on. Now,
do you think the lenders would allow a builder's risk policy on these?
We've done it before, but
Every lender's different.
most lenders want a 12-month policy. And builder's risk policies that are fully earned, where you're not going to get any refund, that's expensive.
And what would be the downside to keeping that for the year?
Well, it's a different type of coverage. So typically your builder's risk policy is more so for renovations being completed, like a house flipper. Mm-hmm. That's the policy.
No, I did them all. I do those all the time.
Yeah.
But what would be the downside to it, though? Like, I get it that, maybe you're flipping a house and you want to have insurance because it doesn't have a kitchen in it right now. But, if you don't really have any other options to get insurance and you really want that house, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, what would be...
If you really want the house, that's your option. So the downside is, well, you don't get the house if you don't get that policy. But a lot of times for those policies to be a better price, they're typically rated as vacant. And if you're living in the property and there's construction going on, now we're looking at it from a different risk assessment level, which is what insurance companies are looking at.
Oh, okay. I thought usually when you use the builder's risk, it's because you are doing work inside the property.
It is.
Oh, okay.
But if you're living there and
they think it's a
work,
risk for you being there while they're doing work.
It can be. Or if there's a tenant there, like that makes it almost impossible.
Right.
If there's a tenant living in a property and you need a builder's risk policy.
So let's tell our audience, though. So we had a deal that we just did recently, right?
In Davie? With Polly.
Yep. And what happened till down to the very last minute? Tell them what happened to the very last minute.
Well, from what I remember on that one, we were able to get it. It wasn't a problem.
I understand, but we sent them your information from the very beginning of the deal.
Oh, yeah.
And this guy was adamant, like he wanted to use his own person.
Yeah, so
they couldn't do it.
From that perspective, I remember the realtor wanted was telling me the buyer wanted to use his own person. They went to so many different places, and nobody can get it done. And it's important to note that not all insurance agents have access to the same companies.
I try to tell this to people.
I have access to the majority of the companies, and if I don't have access to someone, I get access. So I partner with somebody, or I make sure at a minimum that I understand that company's guidelines. So I know what I'm missing out on. And things.
So why is it that some places can write with other?
It typically comes down to like experience and
Really?
loss ratios. So let's just say you have insurance company Z. Well, they might only give what we call carrier appointments to agents that have been in the industry for a long time, or that have gone through certain training, or that write a certain amount of business. They also look at loss ratios. So if in my book of business, I have a lot of clients that are making claims, they know that it's riskier to write business through my agency. So they're going to say, we don't really want to work with you. So agents that
How do you stop that though?
Well, there's only so much you can do, but what's important is educating your clients. So I can say with confidence that the majority of people that are listening to this show, their insurance agent didn't go over their quote with them. What's coverage A, B, C, D, F? What is this deductible? What does that mean?
Did you go over that with me on the one I just did with you yesterday?
If I didn't, it was your fault.
Wow, blame the customer.
But I put in every email, I send them the quote and I say, all of these things can be changed, or most of them can be changed. And I put in bold, when is a good time to speak? Because it's so important that we go over those coverages.
You look for that email.
I know it's going to be there. I'm 100% sure, because anytime I send a quote, it also has disclaimers that I put in for quotes. And so most agents are not doing that. And doing that is like incredibly important. And so people know what they're paying
Right.
for. It would be like if you were going to go buy a car, and you go on the lot and they're like, well, this is the car that we've got. And nobody said to you, well, you can change if you want cruise control or not. You can change if you want leather seats or not,
Oh
or
my God,
backup
yeah.
cam, or there's so many different trim levels. And
Yeah,
it's
I
this-
wish that I knew that the BMW 3 Series back in like 2005 actually had the sports package. And it was like $3,000 more apparently. But the guy's like, well, you didn't want to spend any more money. I'm going, but you didn't even, if you had like let me go sit in one that had that, I would have been like, because when they gave me a loaner car, I was like, why is this different than mine? And he goes, well, that's the sports package. I go, I didn't know about this. Well, you told me you didn't want to spend more than X. I go, maybe
Sounds
you
like
still
something you'd
should have
say.
shown me.
But it's important to go over those things, because
I agree,
There's
because
a lot. that
Buyers
goes
don't
into
know
that.
what they don't know.
And you know me, you know I work really hard and I do as much as I can for people. And this is why I have to spend so much time, because I spend a lot of time on the phone. And if we look at this total insurance marketplace in Florida, there would be, I think, a lot less crap, for lack of a better term, if agents would go over quotes with people and people understood what they were paying for.
Right. So what's a good number for people to reach out to you, so that if they wanted to discuss what they currently have, to see if you could help them get something better? Also for the agents out there to, know, because I have people ask me all the time, who do you use? Like, I'm a big person that people ask all the time, because, if I'm getting my stuff done, and apparently I'm Laura Sanders, like whatever that means. Like even my kids joke, you're Laura Sanders. I'm like, yeah, my kids have a different last name.
I tell people I work with Laura Sanders.
Yeah, and they're like, oh. So what's a good number for them to reach out to you?
Working with realtors is my favorite. I love working on home closings, getting into the closing table. My phone number is 954-326-9842. And you can reach me, text me, call me, whatever. Anything's going to go right there to my cell phone.
Okay, great. So we know that you can help in a plethora of ways, that you have a lot of companies that you write with. We know that poly is definitely something that you can't always guarantee you can get it done, but you can definitely try your best to manage that situation. What if though, and I'm just curious, like if it needs a new roof and it has poly, but it has all its coverings, can you take having a signed contract for the roof?
No.
No.
No, that signed roofing contract thing is specific to Citizens.
Okay.
Most
So
other
not all-
companies
okay.
are not okay
And
with
Citizens is like Nixay.
that. Will not do
uh,
poly.
Interesting.
Which is surprising. They do pretty much
They do- they
they'll
do
like
Federal Pacific.
Yeah, they'll do fuses on an electrical panel. But no, they will not accept polybutylene.
I wonder
Now,
what the reasoning behind that is.
I have one other company that might take it. But again, their premium's going to be a lot higher. It would be like a last... I'd go to a builder's risk before I went to that.
Interesting.
And I don't know if we said this earlier, but I think it's important to note. Poly was used up until about the mid-90s. So if your house was built anytime before like 96, I would say closer to 80s up to mid-90s, that's when it was really popular.
Yeah, there's a couple of communities that have it, so it's. So, would you say that if you were to take out the poly, would it lessen your cost? Or it didn't really matter because you were not getting water coverage?
Yeah,
so
you're not getting water coverage, so you might add in the water coverage, and it could actually increase it a little bit because you're getting water coverage, but you're getting something for it.
Yeah, but that's something I think that a lot of our clients need to know is that water coverage has really been eliminated.
And now where it could lower your costs is we might be able to take you from one of those companies that accepts polybutylene pipes with the water damage exclusion and put you with maybe Citizens that's cheaper.
Now, what is like, you know how like sometimes agents will be like, oh, well, when's your policy coming due? I mean, let's just say like, was it June 1st is now hurricane season?
Correct.
Okay. So typically, if you wait till June 1st, policies are going to be harder to get, more expensive, typically during hurricane season, right?
Well, what happens is you have something called reinsurance, which is insurance for insurance companies. And that market dictates the subsequent market, the homeowners market. And in that market, they only have so much what we call aggregate, or in kind of layman's terms, inventory. So if you go into the store during the pandemic to try to buy toilet paper, it was all gone.
Right.
And that's kind of what happens during hurricane season is hurricane or wind aggregate gets bought up. And for insurance companies, they will only insure or hold so much liability in a certain area where they're not going to hold any more wind aggregate or sell any more wind coverage or hurricane coverage in certain, let's say, zip codes or counties, because if a hurricane hits that county and they had unlimited wind coverage in that county, well, the company's going to go under. And so they'll limit themselves to protect themselves, which is good because it's protecting other people in the state as well that they have policies with. And so once the wind aggregate runs out, well, then it just becomes harder to get policies. In addition to that, if you have hurricanes on the way, typically they have moratoriums where they just say, hey, we're not gonna
Yeah. Is Tip
sell
Tap
any
writing right
policy.
now?
They are writing, but they're limited.
Okay.
So like they're not writing in Broward. They'll
So
write
if
in
somebody
Miami-Dade.
has Tip Tap, right? Can you transfer the policy?
What do you mean?
If they have Tip Tap now, like the seller.
Okay. Could you transfer to a new policy? No. No, you cannot transfer policies except policies with the National Flood Insurance Program, which we
Right.
should have a show about flood.
Yeah, that's a whole thing that I think is just kind of
But
scary.
That can get huge savings for people. If
Oh
they would
yeah,
transfer
especially if
their
you're
policy.
like in like Hollywood and some of
Marco
those
Island,
areas,
Set a
right?
$12,000 quote
12.
for flood.
I saw 35,000 back about 8-9 years ago, and I just was like, at that point, it might have been more than that. At that point, I started requesting people's flood
it's
certs
really good.
because when I was selling stuff down in like Fort Lauderdale, but it's not as bad. It's more Hollywood where like
Yeah.
the levels.
Yeah.
So, I mean, wouldn't you recommend though that everybody gets a flood policy? I mean,
I think that it's good to have. If you're in a flood zone, definitely get it. If you're close to a flood zone, I would say consider it. I would say depending on how close to the coast you are, then consider it. I tell people if you're purchasing a house, they're doing a survey of the property, get an elevation certificate done, and see how high the lot is, and you can make more of an informed decision there
Or Brandon can make that informed decision for you.
with you.
Ah, look at that. So if you're thinking about buying or selling, definitely give me a call. I think that I actually help a lot to know the right people to call, and sometimes I'm able to tell you whether or not you can get insurance, you can't get insurance, what our options might be, and to be honest and open with you about that, you know. So definitely give me a call at 954-650-0827, or check out my website at laurasell.com. And I don't know, I think we're almost running out of time, but
Well,
that was weird.
Thanks for having me, and I think this is really good because you're helping people. You're not just trying to close a deal; you're genuinely helping them, and those are the type of people I like to work with.
Yes, and again, what would be the best number to reach you at, Brandon?
My cell is 954-326-9842.
Or if you're looking for the best realtor out there, and I'm sorry, there's no debate, give Laura Sanders a call at 954-650-0827. Don't make a move without me. And until next week, see you then.
Thank you for tuning in for Making Money with Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. To join the conversation, call us at the studio, 888-994-4995 Studio A, or contact Laura directly at 954-650-0827. Laura Sanders, a name you can trust.